The nature of our hidden friends is unknown, but the veil at times is partially lifted. There is a curious case in the 1800s of a little-known mystic, stigmatized and kept in great secrecy by the Lord himself and at his command. But now we know a little of her gifts, and of what was made known to her about this hidden realm. Her name is Mechtilde von Schönwerth. Here are some of the intuitions and lights that we can glean from what was shown her. The 9 choirs are real categories, and there is more to the mystery of an angel than meets the eye. Those closest to us are our own angel's guardian. It is important to address them. Guardian angels differ from one another. Some appear more active and energetic than others. Some are more reserved, it would seem. And these angels are assigned to persons who are called to suffer much. They appear dressed in red and wear a slender crown. Other guardian angels are dressed in white. Their expression is always joyful. They wear a magnificent cincture. A precious crown adorns their head. These are the angels assigned to innocent souls, and they are servants of such souls rather than companions. Children have guardian angels more lovable than words can convey. Hence one sees how abhorrent to an angel are those video games, scenes, words that are far away from the angelic realm. They're far more at home in the world of smiles and teddy bears and hugs. Their hands are folded in prayer, and their gaze goes up to heaven. The angels of sinners also have a beautiful, majestic bearing, whose aspect defies all description. Their garments are a deep red color, and they wear a crown. Their arms are folded across the breast, and their faces turned upwards to heaven with an imploring and sad expression. How deeply must a mortal sin offend God, and his angels are filled with such grief. Holy souls obliged to live in unchristian surroundings, as well as persons who have been entrusted by God with a special mission to perform, have their particular category of guardian angels. There's nothing more lovable than a guardian angel, and nothing more eager to fill us with graces than the goodness of God. He loves our souls so much that he assigns angels to protect them, to guide, and even to serve them. When a person is resolutely engaged on the road to perfection, he receives, in addition to his guardian angel, other angels of the higher orders of the third and fourth choirs, the virtues and powers. Now this corresponds to something I'd heard elsewhere, that I mentioned also to our own bishop when I retired, that a bishop has two guardian angels. But there's more about this in what is given to this soul. The archangels, these are divided to different orders and appear dressed in different coloured garments. Among the members of this choir are the 7 Holy Spirits who stand before the throne of God, ever ready to execute the commands of the Most High. Now, this is very apocalyptic, and the book of the Apocalypse does give us some idea of the mystery of the beyond. St. Michael, he's the one who stands the nearest to God the Father. He is clothed like a warrior, and his sublime beauty is allied to great power. The angels of his order also appear as warriors. These archangels are sent to strengthen martyrs in their torment. They also support those who must suffer persecution for God's sake. In such hours of trial, God, in his great mercy, bids St. Michael to send angels of his order to assist the guardian angels in strengthening such souls in their great need. Reading the diary of Father Gerard, who was tortured in the Tower of London, gives us some idea of the way in which supernatural force is given under torture. With this help, these happy souls are then able to perform the most heroic acts of self-denial and mortification. What willpower can be perceived in those souls? St. Gabriel, I would think of him on this day and in this week. He appears more than once at this time of year in the Gospel scenes. Rivor el, the strength of God. He wears priestly vestments. Now, in old iconography, one sometimes sees him as a deacon wearing a dalmatic on bended knee. Presumably priestly is used loosely and not precisely, but the notion of something sacred is there. They're serving majesty. We have him in what she saw, wearing an alb and a stole, but iconography does present him dressed as a deacon and not as a priest, just to suggest that he's serving. His gifts place him in the same rank as St. Michael. He has charge of the children of the Holy Spirit, of priests, and all souls that practice a special devotion to the Holy Spirit, or that wish to serve him well. St. Gabriel is also the patron of fervent prayer. Priests should allow no day to pass without invoking his help, particularly, notice, before preaching the Word of God. That rejoins a devotion of St. Francis of Sales, who every time he had to preach would invoke the guardian angels of all his listeners, so that they would impetrate the grace of reception on the part of those hearing the words. These two, who are grappling with great physical or moral sufferings, should call on him for strength. St. Gabriel obtains for us an ardent love for the Mother of God. Of course, that corresponds to the Gospels of these days. Persons who greet him often in their lifetime will be greeted by him in their dying moments, and he will lead their souls to the heavenly Queen. We repeat the words of the Archangel Gabriel, do we not, very often in the day, because they're there in the Hail Mary. And by the way, St. Michael, it seems, does meet us when the soul leaves the body, and he, in some way, transports us. St. Gabriel is the guardian angel of the human nature of Christ. So, it goes on, he was the first to announce the birth of Christ to the shepherds. That's interesting, that he was there. He accompanied the Holy Family during the fight into Egypt. He was the angel who, this is interesting, came to comfort Christ when he sweated blood in the Garden of Olives. He gave assistance to the Mother of God at the meeting with her Son on the road to Calvary. It is also he who, at the moment when Jesus died on the cross, assisted our Redeemer. He was likewise the angel of the resurrection and of the ascension. At the very end of the Gospel, we have these two angels portrayed by the evangelist St. Luke as talking to the apostles who were gazing up to heaven. Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye here, gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus whom you have seen going into heaven will go and come back in like manner as you have seen him go up to heaven. So the angels are very present. And St. Norbert taught that the wearing of the white habit was also an echo of this, the angel of the resurrection, the angels of the ascension. There's something angelic about the monastic habit and the praising of God day and night. It's an echo of the angelic world. Anyone who practices a special devotion to St. Gabriel will be strengthened and comforted by him at the last hour. St. Raphael. So here we are. The healing of God. The root of Raph is there. St. Raphael is the patron of confessors and penitents. His special duty is to assist in the administration and reception of the sacrament of penance. We notice the healing of the person is total, and there cannot be complete healing until the conscience is pacified. No pill can heal the conscience. Married people should also venerate him in a special manner, and he's the one to be invoked also along with St. Joseph when looking for a partner in life. He bears in his right hand a staff similar to a scepter, while St. Gabriel carries the lily, and St. Michael a sword and a shield. In the beauty of St. Raphael there's something very moving. It's almost melancholy. When this archangel approaches, the soul is filled with resignation and strength. He's constantly at the side of certain souls, privileged souls, that bear everything, even apparently incredible sufferings. Wherever he casts his glance, there is a cross. This archangel helps those who suffer courageously to bear their trials with patience. The virtues. The angels of the third choir, the virtues, are clothed in blue and girded with gold. They are personified power or virtue. Virtus, of course, is power in Latin. God assigns them to such persons who strive unceasingly with all their determination and persistence to sanctify themselves, and who, even after they have successfully uprooted their defects, still continue to have recourse to all the remedies of spiritual and corporal penance to assure their eternal salvation. Yes, we can't switch off. When one is driving a car, one has to have the foot on the accelerator just to keep the same speed. Some priests have an angel of this choir ever at their side. Such priests are usually very self-sacrificing, very strict with themselves, and relentlessly mortify themselves. Their souls are the favoured ones of the virtues. Many great sinners receive one of these angels permanently after their conversion. The angel admonishes them night and day, and the penitents are not slow in following his guidance, for these angels have the power necessary to impel them to remain steadfast. The grace of conversion is a great launching pad. It can lead to great saints, but to fall again, a relapse, is a terrible thing. All persons inclined to the spiritual life should call on this particular choir of angels for help, for good thoughts alone do not make holy. One also needs strength to carry them out. The powers. The angels of this choir are tall and wear alb and dalmatic, which are coloured according to the virtues of the souls they serve. With few exceptions, they serve only the priests. The powers appear very serious. Their might is of a more intensive character than that of the virtues, and the devil must flee before them. Their hands are joined before the breast. Their look is compelling and authoritative, and their faces shine with great splendour. It is the sublime majesty that proceeds from this choir that justifies their name. The powers watch over priests more carefully in their priestly functions. Priests should invoke these angels for proper recitation of the office, because the powers can drive away all distraction during obligatory prayers. The choir of angels, archangels, cherubim and seraphim are often remembered, whereas the rest, particularly the powers and virtues, are almost completely forgotten. The preface at this point of the liturgical year is very beautiful. Heaven and earth are very close, and when sung it does give an idea of the choir of angels hovering around. Indeed, the different choirs, they're named, and the Old Latin, which comes through in the Good New Translation, is interesting when coupled with chant. It gives us an idea of majesty close at hand. God assigned an angel from the choir of powers to priests who need special graces in the confessional in order to guide souls consecrated to God. Confessors in monasteries always have such a helper. Other confessors only when they must guide privileged souls, especially beloved by God. Priests who have one of the powers constantly at their side are much favoured by God, because these angels lead them to a better self-knowledge and instill in them an ever-growing desire for perfection. The word of a priest in the confessional can lead to the formation of saints. The mechanical use of the sacrament can leave them where they're at. It has occurred that at their ordination, certain priests have received, in addition to their regular guardian angel, an angel from the choir of powers, because they were destined to do much extraordinary work in the confessional. Priests, under the protection of the powers, have great influence over souls, and their work is very fruitful. Should their zeal lag, the powers again enkindle it for them. the blessing given by such priests has a special power. This choir is to be honoured and invoked in times of spiritual dryness in prayer and slothfulness, also against all temptation to give in to anger and impatience. Much virtue goes up in a breath of anger, as also in a breath of smoke from a pipe, a cigar, or a cigarette. Much virtue went up in a little smoke. The principalities. Each parish has its own angel, who belongs to the choir of the principalities. These angels are tall and majestic, and are surrounded by a court of other angels. They kneel before the Most Blessed Sacrament, praying night and day for members of the parish. They see to it that the dying receive the last sacraments, and that the children are baptized. They are acquainted with all the parishioners of their church. They beg for God's forgiveness each time some scandal is committed. They adore the hidden God in the tabernacles, who is almost entirely forgotten by his children, and who waits in vain for them in his empty church. The principalities continually chant their mystical sanctus in reparation for the lukewarmness of their parishioners. And how much these angels suffer when they see the door of the church firmly locked. We play the game of Satan by doing just what he wants, when he provokes that by getting his minions to do naughty things in church, stealing and the like. Just make sure that if it works, we can use it to close the church. Devotion to the principalities will merit love for prayer and perseverance in it. Their hands are always folded in prayer, their countenances friendly and gracious, but at times very sad, namely when someone receives the sacraments sacrilegiously. It is then that they bow down to the ground and make most fervent reparation. No priest should fail to greet the angel of his church or parish. The graces he can gain by this practice are unspeakably precious and abundant. The anniversary of the consecration of the church is a day of great joy for the principalities. Every church has its protecting angel, who on this feast presents before the throne of God all the sacrifices, merits, prayers, victories, which have accumulated since the previous anniversary. What joy for these angels when the number of good works is great, and the incense of prayer constantly ascends to heaven from their churches. On this day, the Heavenly Prince blesses the parish. This angel will never forsake the children confided to him, and always prays for them, begging God to give them courage and strength. A mother cannot pray more fervently for her children than this angel does, and yet who renders him due thanks? The dominations. God assigns angels of this choir to those who must give spiritual guidance as teachers in higher schools of learning, from the pulpit or in the confessional. Missionaries stand under the protection of the dominations. These angels assist especially those who work for the spread of God's kingdom on earth. Angels of this choir are given to superiors of monasteries and seminaries to help them be humble. These persons must give God credit for all the good they do. The dominations always remain near them. These appear dressed in white garments, adorned with precious stones, and on their breast a shield, upon which is engraved the name of God. In the right hand, a scepter. Their faces like the sun, and their crown of a blinding radiance. It is to the dominations that we must pray for the spread of God's kingdom on earth, for the return of lukewarm and fallen away Catholics to the practice of the faith. At a time of despondency or despair, we must call upon these angels for help, because they exercise great power against such temptations. Although this choir is mentioned in the preface of the Mass, Adorant Dominationes, very few think of invoking them. And still, these angels strive with much zeal to spread God's reign on earth. The thrones, a royal choir. Every diocese, every kingdom, every cloistered community has its own angel chosen from this choir. These occupy thrones like kings. They appear in golden garments covered with a brilliant mantle, and their domed crowns are resplendent beyond all conception, full of dignity, supernatural majesty. At their feet a scepter, their arms folded across the breast, on the right hand a shining gold ring. In spite of their great majesty, their look, when directed towards heaven, is of the greatest humility and ardent fervour. They unceasingly offer to God the prayers of their diocese, kingdom or monastery. They present before the Blessed Trinity all acts of mortification, sacrifices, prayers, good works of any of their subjects, ennobled and sanctified by their own prayers. So God has ordained that they be mentioned in the preface of the Holy Mass, otherwise they would be just forgotten. There's a tragic note in the service of the angels, whereas they do all that lies in their power for poor sinful humanity, among us there are many who cold-heartedly and with a lack of proper faith completely forget the angels, or even star their existence a charming legend. The cherubim are the swords of God. They are clothed with a pure, brilliant light. Their faces are grave, and their expression bears a resemblance to that of St. Michael. They are girded with fire and carry a fiery sword in the right hand. Their crown emits rays of light like the sun. They are the personification of zeal for the glory of God and his defense, which they stand ready at all times. 4 of the cherubim stand before the throne of the Holy Father. It was one of the cherubim who drove Adam and Eve out of paradise. One of those angels is often placed at hallowed sanctuaries. Yes, one of these angels, that's not necessarily one of the 4, but in general, one of these angels from that choir is often placed at hallowed sanctuaries to protect them with his flaming sword. The cherubim should be invoked when one is troubled with doubts against faith. Scrupulous persons and those who experience many and severe temptations against holy purity should be strongly encouraged to invoke them, and the help they receive will be remarkable. Saraf in Hebrew is to burn. The seraphim are the burning ones. The last is the most blessed choir, the seraphim. It's hard to explain the excellence of this group. And by the way, Lucifer and Beelzebub were in that choir. It came out in exorcism. They were made for one thing alone, to love the God of love. Without ceasing, they adore, love, and praise the most blessed Trinity. They cannot do otherwise, and this is what constitutes their happiness. Their love is hourly inflamed to new and greater intensity for the supreme love, who chose that their unique service would be to praise and love him eternally. How wonderful and majestic must she be, the Queen of Angels, most Holy Mother of God. And she took the place of the brightest creature, Lucifer, hence the perfect hate and envy that he has. cannot bear the Immaculate. In her was broken the chain that he had forged, original sin. And so, these are our companions. The contemplative life should have something of the Seraphim's love, just praising God. But all that we do must be in angelic mode and worthy of our hidden friend.